Would it be a mistake for the Panthers if they don't add a potential difference maker at wide receiver this offseason? I'll answer that question among other listener questions on this weekly Friday mailbag edition of Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching this show here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter at Julian Council and Blue Sky at Julian Council. Why? Because on Fridays throughout the offseason, I'm right here on the show answering your weekly Friday mailbag questions. All you got to do is either at me or DM me over on Twitter or simply at me over on Blue Sky to get your questions in for next week's edition of the weekly Friday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. This episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And we're back once again for the weekly Friday mailbag here on Locked On Panthers. And I did tell you that this would be the last week of any sort of free agency talk, as free agency's over. It happened. It was like 3 days, and then after that, there was not much going on, and I don't have much else to say about it, as kind of evidenced by yesterday in the grades, which, I mean, grading free agency, kind of a fool's errand. Something you should do after you see how those guys actually perform, but hell, whatever. It's late March. There's not much going on in Carolina right now. We're all preparing for the NFL draft. Pro days are happening, and you want to know who's going to be added out of this draft class to the roster, not necessarily what's already happened and who was added last week to the Panthers roster via free agency. So there's plenty of things I guess I could talk about free agency wise, but then what would I say in July when there's actually nothing happening? So we'll have plenty of that discussion later on. Let's go ahead. I mean, we're going to focus in on the draft on today's show because those are like the only questions that y'all have. So I totally understand. I was trying to wait till Monday to give you, I guess, my initial draft takes. I'll still do that. Not everybody watches and listens to every show. To all of you that do, you everydayers, thank God for you. But also, like, are you okay? you listening to me every day? Are you all right? But it is what it is. I appreciate everybody here. But let's get to the questions. Kendrick does have a question, just kind of overall, about just state of the wide receiver room. And look, I know we're talking about it again. You guys ask these questions, and I answer the questions that you ask. Not every single one of them, because there are a lot of repeats, and not every single one of them needs to come on the show. But these are your questions that you're asking me. So don't yell at me if I'm talking about something again when I ask you for questions. Okay, Kendrick, he says, is it possible that the Panthers haven't seriously pursued a wide receiver one because, one, the GM and head coach have stated that they want players that fit their scheme, two, are young enough to grow with the team, second contract guys, and three, the head coach and OC have built their careers from developing wide receivers and see potential for a lot of growth from our second-year receivers here in Carolina. Also, have they not stated that they would be interested in a speed guy, meaning not another jump ball, big body? That's Ted McMillan, T. Higgins, and others that fit that mold. Okay, so let's go back 3 weeks ago to the NFL Scouting Combine up in Indianapolis, Indiana, when Dan Morgan, the Panther GM and president of football operations, spoke to the media. He said this about the Carolina Panthers wide receiver room, saying, quote, I love our wide receiver room. I think with Thielen, with Coker, and with Xavier, we have some guys in that room that we're really excited about. We have a young core of guys that are still developing from a fundamental standpoint, from a route running standpoint. It would be nice to find as many playmakers as possible. If we pinpoint a guy, whether in free agency, which obviously did not happen, or in the draft, then we wouldn't hesitate to either draft or sign one. Speed is definitely a factor when you talk about any position. You want to be fast, you want to be physical. So yeah, that is a point of emphasis for us as well. So I do think that from your standpoint here, Kendrick, as far as a lot of growth and development that they're expecting out of the second-year guys in Xavier Leggette and Jalen Coker, he did talk about that. Dan Morgan did, about still developing from a fundamental standpoint, from a route running standpoint. So they do have two really nice young prospects to be able to build around moving forward. If you look at the numbers from a year ago, I'm not sure whether it finished this way, but I do remember like midway through the season, even later after that, you look at top 10 receiving numbers among rookies. It was JT Sanders as a tight end. It was Jalen Coker, and it was Xavier Leggette as receivers. 3 of the top 10 were here in Carolina. So that makes you feel like moving forward, those numbers are only going to increase, and the Panthers are going to be set at tight end with the receiver and at 2 of the receiving spots at the wide receiver position, to where maybe they don't need to be that aggressive in trying to sign a wide receiver 1 by trading for someone and giving him $30 million per year, or having to get one in the draft upcoming. I think that they had interest in DK Metcalf. I've seen the 4-year 120 thing that's all over Twitter. I have not seen any reputable person put that out there, so I shouldn't even have mentioned it, but I know that you guys have probably talked about it. It might be in the comment section on YouTube. I don't know. But like, as far as we have been reported, what we've seen, what we know, there hasn't been that much interest. Like, T. Higgins was never available. Chris Godwin was never really available. DK was, but he decided to go to Pittsburgh, or at least that's the deal that worked out. So you have to wonder, like, have they really even seriously pursued anybody? And then look at the market as is. I mean, how many of those guys were really available? Not a ton of them. So yeah, it does make sense that maybe they're just leaning on the young guys and guys that are going to fit them and they can grow with and develop, opposed to going out there and spending big money on somebody that's already proven. Spencer, though, he does think that Carolina needs to address wide receiver this offseason. Dan Morgan said that they would not neglect the offense, and so far they have not done that, as they've brought back the entirety of the offensive line. They've added Rico Dowdle, David Morris coming back as right now that 4th wide receiver in Carolina. So while they're not going out there and spending big on the offensive side of the ball, they are retaining a lot of important players heading into 2025. Spencer says, I feel like just about every year at this time, everyone undercomplicates athleticism and overcomplicates tape in the evaluation of wide receiver prospects in the draft. If you run a 4.2, all of a sudden, you're a lock for the first round, even if your tape is mid. Likewise, if you're Ted McMillan, this is the time of the year you get doxxed because you're not a track star. Oh, I laughed pretty hard when I first read that, to be honest with y'all. My question is, do you think neglecting wide receiver in the first round is a smart idea as the Panthers try and solidify their offense around Bryce? To me, I really like Ted McMillan. Yes, there may be separation issues, but to me, judging a 6'5", 220 wide receiver for his ability to separate is like judging Derrick Henry by his elusiveness. He is much more of a power forward wide receiver than a traditional shooting guard / small forward prototype, but so were guys like Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Keyshawn Johnson, and is ridiculously smooth for his size. I think all great teams do need at least one game record on offense, whether that be Gronk, Cooper Kupp, Saquon Barkley, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Evans, or okay. My question essentially is, do you think it's a mistake to go another year without that game record on offense, assuming Derek Brown and JC are that on D? Yes, they need a pass rusher, but this class is deep at the position, and you can get a high-end guy in round 2, whereas I don't know if you can at wide receiver. All right, well, a lot there. As far as the last thing you said there, receiver, I'm, again, not in love with this wide receiver class that's coming out this year, to where I don't really believe there is necessarily that many high-end type of talents that are just obvious in this year's class compared to last year's, where was it 7, 8? Maybe it was like in the first round, but I think like 9 overall, like in the first 34 picks, which is just nuts. I don't think that's going to be the case this season, or this draft upcoming next month. Now, as far as with like the draft process, like, I agree with you. I mean, John Ross was good at Washington. Like, you look at Xavier Worthy, he was good at Texas when you look at the numbers, and they went out there and they just blew up the combine. Now, Worthy, better situation than what Ross was in the NFL, and things so far have worked out for him for his sake and for Kansas City's. But I do agree with you that all of a sudden this guy runs a great time and people are freaking out. Like the Matthew Golden stuff, I think he's a really good player. It's interesting to me that all of a sudden, like, it's been like everyone's caught on, like, oh, hey, this guy might be a first round talent. And this is not criticism of Matthew Golden. I just always find it interesting that, like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, this guy. And he was great down the stretch for Texas. And we mentioned him on the show before via mailbags and would not hate that at all. Looks like he's going to be a first round type of talent. We'll talk about that more later on the show. But as far as would it be a mistake? So they were hoping last year when they drafted Xavier Leggette that he would end up being that game wrecker, as you say, on offense. And it's still very early. And I don't think you can definitively say either way that he is going to or is not going to be. Now, I think it's unlikely that he's going to be that game-wrecking type of talent at that wide receiver spot. I do not see him as a wide receiver 1. I think he can be a solid wide receiver 2 and still be able to make plays. But I don't see that high-level guy right now on the roster who can be that moving forward, if you understand where I'm coming from that perspective. Now, the separation, like, I kind of agree with you. Like, Ted McMillan, just go back and watch the tape when he was against Travis Hunter. Like, that guy, he can play. Like, he's a good-ass receiver. The last 2 years at Arizona, like last year, he was their entire offense. The year prior to that, Arizona had a little bit more balance. And when they went on to win, I think, like 11 games, which is still crazy that Arizona won 11 games in college football. But he was great that year as well. Like, this guy, everyone knew. This is who you got to stop. And I get college, different than the NFL. But still, man, to put up the numbers he's put up the last 2 years, especially this past fall when everyone knew that the only offense they had was just throw the ball at the Tet and see what happens. Hell, look at some of the guys in the league who didn't even have that great of separation numbers. Looking at NFL's next-gen stats, A.J. Brown, 2.1. That was third worst in the NFL. He only had 1,000 yards receiving and 7 touchdowns. Brandon Ayuk had 2.4. Now, he was injured, so I don't really need to put out his stats. T. Higgins, 2.4 yards of separation, 73 receptions, 911 yards, 10 touchdowns. So it worked out for him. He's a big-bodied guy. Drake London, 100 receptions, 1,271 yards, 9 touchdowns. And again, another big-bodied guy. So we're talking about these big-bodied dudes and not getting hyper-focused on their separation issues, if you want to call them any issues at all. Just look at A.J. Brown, look at T. Higgins, look at Drake London, and the numbers they were able to put up last year in the NFL. So, good point, I think, Spencer. I don't know if it's a mistake. I think it would be odd to me in a way. I see the vision where they have Coker, they have Leggette already, Thielen's coming back, got to pay a raise, and those three together, if all healthy, could be a solid wide receiver core. I don't think it's going to be a top-tier wide receiver core, but it could be a solid, maybe good enough one. But I do still think they need another piece in there. And drafting someone is not guaranteed they're going to come in and have an instant impact and be able to really elevate that offense and that receiver room. But they got to at least raise the floor, you would think. That's what you would want to happen. So I do think they need another piece. I don't know if you can 100% say that it would be a mistake if they do not go out and draft a receiver like in the first round, especially when there are still other needs on this roster, and receiver probably would not be considered the top need by that organization and maybe by people out there in the fan base. But not adding another piece of Bryce, I think it's an interesting message, if there's a message at all, that after he played really well, that you're not trying to continue that by giving him more pieces offensively at receiver. Now, Dowdle coming in, that's great. Hard to say whether it's a mistake or not. Like, I wouldn't want to use that word, but I appreciate the question. All right, take a quick pause, come back and answer more of your weekly Friday mailbag questions here on Locked On Panthers. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives you business flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who had delivered incredible results. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, back here on Locked On Panthers, answering your weekly Friday mailbag questions, as I do every single Friday throughout the offseason, either at me or DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council, at me over on Blue Sky at Julian Council to get those questions in. You do not need to follow. I will, of course, accept a follow, but you do not need to get questions into me for the weekly Friday mailbag. Over now to, I think his name's actually like Alex, but his name on Twitter is hilarious. Chuba Missile Crisis. He says, all the mock drafts of the Panthers taking Jalon Walker, and it's been that way for a while now. I just listened to PFF's edge rusher ranking segment, and they don't even have him in their top 5 edge rushers. Why do you think we're so linked to Walker and not guys like James Pierce Jr. or Mike Green when we most likely have our pick of the second best edge rusher in the draft? And that would mean that Abdul Carter is going ahead of all those guys, which I do believe is going to be the case. There was thought that maybe he goes number 1 overall, but then he has I think it's a foot situation. I don't know what's a broken foot or stress fracture, whatever it is, but it's not appearing he's going to go number 1 overall. Who the hell even knows what Tennessee's going to do? Are they going to trade somebody or are they not? But yeah, when you look at the edge rushers on PFF, they have Abdul Carter as the top guy and a number 2 overall prospect. Mike Green is number 2 and the 12th overall prospect. James Pierce Jr., Charlotte native, is a 3rd and 15th overall prospect. Donovan Azaraku out of Boston College. That guy's he's a damn good player. There's not a lot of talk about him, it feels like. Maybe there will be moving forward, but he's the 4th prospect, 16th overall. And then Michael Williams is the 5th best prospect and 26th overall. So that's edge defenders. Now, you got to go over to linebackers, I'm assuming. And that's where they have Jalon Walker, where he's actually behind Jahad Campbell of Alabama. And there has been a lot of talk recently about Campbell being a top 10 pick there at that linebacker spot, as off-ball linebackers are starting to kind of go back up in value in the NFL. So he's the 10th overall prospect and top linebacker, while Walker, according to PFF, is the 28th overall prospect and second best linebacker. So yeah, like everything I look at recently has been Walker going to Carolina for the most part. Looking at Mel Kiper Jr., his latest mock draft, he had Jalon Walker going to Carolina. You look at the mock draft, it was like 12 picks rather, that Matt Miller and Jordan Reed recently did. And they also had Carolina taking Jalon Walker, and that was Matt Miller who made the pick. And he said the early parts of this draft should be all about defense for Carolina after last season allowed, all the points. Walker's a bit of a hybrid defender with linebacker and pass rusher versatility, but I think he'll become a star as an outside edge defender. So while they have him listed as edge/linebacker, he talks about the versatility. And when Mel Kiper went out there and mocked him a couple of weeks ago, or not a couple of days ago, rather, he said drafting Walker would give Carolina a versatile defender who can play off-ball linebacker or on the edge. And then when Jalon Walker was mocked to Jacksonville, 5th overall by Daniel Jeremiah, he was already off the board by the time Carolina could take him. He said Jalon Walker could play off-ball linebacker on early downs and then rush off the edge when it's time to hunt the quarterback. So why he's been mocked to Carolina is the defense was terrible last year. They don't have a pass rush. Now, it's great that they added the upside of Pat Jones the second, that they added Turk Wharton as well to help things. Derek Brown coming back off of injury, that will help as well. But overall, this is not a pass rush that you should necessarily buy into at this point in time. Yes, adding Wharton, adding Jones, that should improve things. But by how much? Like, there's still not that edge rusher that concerns you. Like, there's not an elite pass rusher on this team. And you can question whether Burns was that or not, but still, that's a guy getting paid $30 million per year because of what the Giants at least believed he could do. And also based off what he's been able to do so far in his career. And that's not really any of the guys on the roster at this point in time. Like, it's been a long time since Clowney's been a Pro Bowler, and that was back when he was still with the Houston Texans. And at this point in time in his career, I don't think it's fair to really expect that out of him. I'm not sure that's what people are expecting, but still just want to put that out there. It's the versatility, man. That's really the best way to look at it, is that, yes, he can play on the edge and he can play at that inside linebacker spot. And the fact that you'd be able to get him to be able to, on those early downs, like mentioned by Daniel Jeremiah, to be able to play that off-ball linebacker spot, knowing that eventually you're going to have to move on from Josie Jewell and maybe even have off of Christian Roseboom after this season. And if Jalon Walker can come in and start there in 2026, after in 2025, potentially this year as a rookie, rotating at the edge rusher spot and also rotating at linebacker and helping out in both those areas, like, that's kind of two birds, one stone is the way to look at it, with why Carolina would go out there and get him. And also why the defense was terrible. The pass rush was terrible. They got rid of a premium talent there and Brian Burns, and you can't ignore the versatility that is there in a player like Jalon Walker. So that's what it is. Alex, he asked, could you see the Panthers double dipping at edge rusher in the draft? Jalon Walker is the pick at 8, and Kyle Kennard is available at 57 or 74. Pairing the Butkus winner with the Nagurski winner would be pretty cool. What's the situation here, man, with Kyle Kennard? Like, what's going on? Let me go back to PFF because they got their big board, and let's look at edge rushers, because where's Kyle Kennard on their big board here? Let's see. They got him. I am scrolling a lot further than I feel like it should be scrolling. Okay, they got about 65. Which, okay, let's see. Kennard shows a good understanding of how to win as a pass rusher in varying situations in both odd and even fronts. He is lean and long, which is a plus for arm length, but a negative when holding up versus the run. His handwork and footwork show a great baseline to build a successful pass rush profile in the league as a day 2 selection. PFF had this guy 135th out of 869 edge rushers in college football this past year. Do they watch these games? Like, I know I use it as a resource because it's like, all right, let me find something where I can like put some like numbers and analytics towards when trying to discuss this. And like, when you do this on a daily basis, you got to find as many resources as possible to have the same conversation over and over again. So that's why I go to PFF. But there's times like now I look at it and it's like, what the, I almost cursed, but like, what are we doing? I was at the game against LSU when game day was there, and when South Carolina should have won that game. We're not going to sit here and relitigate the officiating, but I was in that end zone where both of those penalties occurred. One of them where it's like, why even touch the quarterback in that situation? And the other one, yeah, I mean, in real time, certainly did look like a horse collar, but upon further review, was not a horse collar. But that dude dominated that game. Kennard dominated. He dominated Oklahoma, and who didn't? Oklahoma couldn't block anybody except for Alabama. They could block them. But yeah, he was unreal this past season. And when you look at him going from Georgia Tech, where he was a solid player, but like Kyle Kennard was not, I don't think anyone saw this coming. Because if anyone saw this coming, he doesn't go to South Carolina, if we're being honest. He goes somewhere much bigger and gets paid way more money than whatever they paid him. Because whatever they paid him in Columbia last year, they didn't pay him enough. I can promise you that. So I would love to see that if he's available there at 74. I have a hard time believing when it's all said and done that teams are going to let him get all the way down there in the third round, that they're going to not take Kyle Kennard. That to me doesn't make any sense. And that goes back to Spencer earlier about the hyper focus on the traits. Can he make the plays? He did it in the SEC. Mike Green did it in the Sun Belt. Come on. So I don't know. I'd be down. That's all I'll say. I'll say that, Alex. I'd be down. What are we doing here? And Alex is a South Carolina alum. Your boy was a dog last year, and I don't understand it. Like Ezeraku, like that's a first round talent. What are we doing? What are we doing? Are we watching these games or not? All right. Take one more pause. We'll be back to answer the rest of your weekly Friday mailbag questions here on Locked On Panthers.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, back here on Locked On Panthers. A couple more questions here on the mailbag as we go ahead and just dive into the draft season on Monday. Going to give you, I guess, my first thoughts or my thoughts 1 month out, but giving you plenty of them today, of course. But please tune in on Monday if you'd like. Roderick, he asked, if the Panthers were to pick Jalon Walker or Mykel Williams, do you think wide receiver Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka, or Trey Harris will still be there at 57th, or should the Panthers trade up to grab one of those guys? So looking at receiver right now, Mel Kiper Jr. and Daniel Jeremiah in their latest mock drafts this week both had Matthew Golden out of Texas and Tedero McMillan out of Arizona, both going in the first round. And then Kiper had Emeka Egbuka from the Ohio State University, also going off the board in the first round as well. I feel pretty confident that Golden and Tet will both be gone. And I also feel like Egbuka ain't making it to 57 as well. And I would say the same thing about Luther Burden. Trey Harris, that's one to be interested in. I guess there's questions about his separation, but that guy was able to get open down the field a lot for Ole Miss the last 2 years. I thought he was a really good player in Lane Kiffin's scheme. Now, different than what you're going to see on Sundays, of course, but maybe he's there. I just get the feeling that that's not what they're looking for. And based off of the mocks, which from the people who do these for like places like ESPN and the NFL Network, they actually talk to people. It does not appear that Carolina is targeting a receiver, at least in the conversations that they're having, does not give them the impression. And maybe that's what Carolina is trying to do, is to get them off the scent. But edge first, corner at second, that's what's been the most popular 2-round mock I've seen so far. So maybe they trade up, but again, I don't love this receiver class, so it's hard for me to sit here and to advocate for them trading up to get a receiver in a wide receiver class where I don't really love the overall talent level, especially the top tier guys that are out there. Okay, Jamie, do you think there's a chance the Panthers draft a tackle in the first round to be the successor to Taylor Moton? Feels like the non-sexy option and doesn't fill an instant need, but this front office has prioritized the O-line, so just wanted to get your thoughts. I don't think that's what they want to do. Now, if anything, think about Brady Christensen maybe being that successor. Like, Taylor's going to play on that $31.3 million cap hit. He's going to do that this season, and then they're going to make a decision after the year as far as what they want to do there and whether they want to extend him or move on. And Taylor is going to be 31 in August. So getting to your 30s, you start to question how much longer someone's going to play. And this is the first year where he's finally had injuries. And this is a year also where they really tried to keep him off the practice field throughout the week and kind of do some load management. And you have to wonder, like, is that body beginning to break down? Now with Brady, he's going to be 29, so he's only 2 years younger, and that's part of going to BYU and being a Mormon, that you're just going to be a lot older than you would be. But maybe he could be the successor down the road. It clearly feels like to me the best spot for him is at tackle. Now he's a versatile guy, can play center, can play guard, can play tackle. All that's great. Maybe him, because I would think that if you're going to move off of Taylor, you can maybe get Brady Christensen for a lot less than what you may have to pay Taylor Moton. Because if you've been starting him at that right tackle spot for a long time, and yes, he's already gotten his big deal, I don't know how much less money he's trying to make to stay in that spot for Carolina if they keep him for 2026 and beyond. I don't foresee, first round tackle. I don't think that's going to happen at all. Like who are the first round tackles other than Kelvin Banks and I guess Will Campbell? And people were like, does Campbell have long enough arms? I know that's been a conversation. There's the guy from Mizzou, Armand Membu, who people have been talking a lot about recently. I don't see it. I don't think that's going to be what happens. Final question from Seth. Most 6th and 7th round draft picks end up either getting cut or on the practice squad or become special teams guys. And you look at this past year for Carolina, Jaden Crumedy was, basically redshirted for the majority of the season with that ankle injury and then barely play at the end of the year. And then, of course, the 7th round pick was traded away. So that is your point right there, Seth. Why don't the Panthers take a chance with one of their last picks to draft a potential long-term solution at kicker, whether it be Ryan Fitzgerald out of FSU, Dominic Zavada from Michigan, or Andres Borregales from Miami? There's even Lou Groza Award winner Kenneth Amenderes from Jake Delhomme's alma mater, Louisiana. Do you think this is in consideration, or will Dan Morgan and Dave Canales stick with a veteran kicker? Well, they don't have a veteran kicker right now. They're leaving the door open. That's what Dan said a couple weeks ago at the Combine. Freddie Pinheiro, who still unsigned at this point in time, 10:46 on this Friday morning. I'm recording this. So they can go back that way. I do think they want a kicker who has a bigger leg. I do think that's what they want. And maybe a kicker also doesn't want as much money as Eddie Pinheiro wants. But he keeps touting how he's one of the most accurate kickers in the history of the NFL. They ain't a guy who's trying to come for anything less than what he thinks his worth is. And no, it's not like he thinks he's worth $10 million per year. Like, be real. Okay. I know people are like, oh, when you say that, like, what if he thinks he's worth $50 million? Like, shut up. Like, that's not what I'm saying, guys. Like, be adults here. But as far as that goes, like, that feels like it's done. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe I'll be proven wrong as soon as I get off of here, and totally fine. Like I've advocated for Eddie Pinheiro coming back, but they have Matthew Wright right now, and he's technically a veteran kicker, even though he's like not really held down a spot anywhere in the NFL. He has gotten opportunities, but he has not been the guy. I do think that they want a rookie kicker. They tried the thicker kicker, Harrison Beavis, last year. It didn't work out. Fitzgerald, the only good thing about FSU this past season, that team sucked. He's a good kicker. Borregales down there in Miami, also very good. And I think he won the Lou Groza once upon a time. And I don't know who your guy is from Louisiana. I'm sure Delhomme's probably in there banging the table, being like, Dan, you got to draft my guy. Not really. Maybe he is, but I doubt that's what Jake's doing. I do think that they want to have Wright and then a rookie and then have those guys compete. That's what I think is going to happen. So, yeah, 7th round makes more sense than drafting an undersized hybrid linebacker to be your 7th rounder like they did last year. So, yeah, I'm all for it. All right. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Host by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter at Julian Council, where next Friday I'm back answering your weekly Friday mailbag questions. Again, at me or DM me over on Twitter or at me over on Blue Sky to get those questions into me, early next week. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all on Monday, where we'll be 1 month away from the NFL draft, and I'll give you all of my draft takes.